Libya, hundreds of people have held protests in Tripoli's central Martyrs Square. They are protesting their anger after reports emerged that US President Donald Trump had a phone conversation with Khalifa Haftar, whose forces are seeking to control Tripoli. CGTN's Michael Karanja has more on this.
These Libyans say they are against the interference of foreign countries into their domestic affairs.
The powers that support terrorism in Libya are France, Russia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. We condemn the criminal acts against the Libyan people and the support of this rebel Libyan commander Khalifa Haftar. We also condemn the United Nations mission because of their inability to handle the Libyan situation.
The protest came after the White House announced that US President Donald Trump spoke by phone to Commander Khalifa Haftar. The two are said to have discussed a shared vision for Libya's transition to a stable, democratic political system.
There is no value to this telephone conversation between US President Donald Trump and Libyan Commander Khalifa Haftar. The revolutionaries are in every street, and we will respond to them from the street and not through press releases.
A White House statement says Trump recognized Field Marshal Haftar's significant role in fighting terrorism and securing Libya's oil resources. Commander Khalifa Haftar has led an assault to capture the capital Tripoli for nearly 2 weeks. The fallout of renewed fighting between the Libyan National Army and the UN-backed Government of National Accord has led to dozens being killed and thousands more displaced. Michael Karanja, CGTN.
And CGTN's Guy Henderson has been following the events from Benghazi. He brings us more details about what was contained in that phone call between Trump and Haftar.
Just a brief statement from the White House, but it appears to reverse US policy on Libya. It confirms that President Donald Trump spoke with General Khalifa Haftar, that is the man in charge of the military force which is currently attacking the UN-backed government in Tripoli. It says that the two men spoke about the ongoing counter-terrorism efforts being carried out by General Haftar and the need to achieve peace and stability. It goes on to say, and I'm just reading the quote straight out of the statement here, that it recognised Haftar's significant role in fighting terrorism and securing Libya's oil resources. Straight off the back of that statement, we headed down the road from here in Benghazi to speak to General Haftar's spokesperson, a man named Major General Ahmed Mesmari. He said the LNA, that is Haftar's military forces here in eastern Libya, are interpreting that as a sign that the US now supports the LNA offensive against the internationally recognised UN-backed government in Tripoli. He said that he now expects, as a result of that statement, for cracks to start appearing in that UN-backed government and potentially for some of the opponents currently defending Tripoli to start fleeing and backing away from the front line. So too early perhaps to say pivotal, but certainly a very significant moment in this recent escalation.
CGTN's Adel Mahroui has been following developments in Libya for us. He now joins us live from Cairo. Adel, the discussions between the US President and Khalifa Haftar have sparked angry reactions in Tripoli. Why?
Well, basically because the United States has shifted from calling on a ceasefire and sort of indirectly condemning Haftar's attack against Tripoli to shifting towards a phone call between President Trump and General Khalifa Haftar. So basically it is, as Guy said, a change in the US policy, and what irritates the government in Tripoli more is that it follows Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visit to the White House, where he met Trump, and Tripoli and Libya in general has been one of the main files that they've been discussing together. So it seems that the United States is now taking more of a closer approach towards the Egyptian policy, which Cairo has been a very vocal and apparent supporter to General Khalifa Haftar. Few days back, President al-Sisi has opened the doors of the presidential palace, welcoming Khalifa Haftar in his during his visit in Cairo in a clear stance of support. And also the Egyptian presidency has indicated that they they support the efforts of counter-terrorism that Haftar is leading, the similar term that has been used by the White House when they announced Trump's conversation with Khalifa Haftar. This indicates that there might be an overlook on the support that Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia are giving to Haftar, especially that on this side or on this sort of a coalition that is supporting Haftar, there's also France, which has been swaying its support to the eastern side. So it seems that all these movements are taking the international recognition and support that the UN-backed government in Tripoli, led by Faiz Sarraj, used to have after the Skhirat agreement 2015. So this shift may indicate that Haftar will be supported to continue further his recent escalations against Tripoli.
So Adel, what's the significance of the backing that Haftar is likely to start getting from the US in his offensive against the UN-recognized government in Tripoli?
Well, we've already seen that in the UN Security Council, where in a very rare stance we would see the United States and Russia taking the similar position in the Security Council, stopping a resolution that should have led or have called on Libya's neighbors in specific to engage in the ceasefire, which is an indirect reference to the magnitude of support that Libya's neighbors are taking to support General Khalifa Haftar, which has not been the spotlight of the international community yet. But there has been reports of a continuation of support, logistically and intelligence support, that beside some unconfirmed reports about military support to Haftar. And with the UN stance, it means that such support may be given, even if it's indirect, but it is given sort of a green light to continue the support towards Haftar, which is reversing the scale of power within Libya. And definitely Haftar is becoming more popular, stronger on the ground, and controlling much more territories than he used to just earlier this year.
All right, Adel Mahri, live in Cairo, many thanks. The South Sudanese government says it's continuing preparations to form a unity government by next month. Opposition leader Riek Machar is calling for a delay to ensure additional security measures are put in place ahead of his return to the country. Machar and President Salva Kiir are scheduled to form a power-sharing government under a peace deal signed last September. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's 7-month-old peace deal requires a new government representing all political groups to be formed in May. But former Vice President turned opposition leader Riek Machar is calling for a 6-month postponement in the formation of the new government, citing a lack of progress on security.
For this peace agreement to move forward, of course, there are some things like the security arrangement, in my own view, is something that need to be also addressed, because when you diffuse the tension of the forces on the ground, unify the forces, then it will be like they will have the confidence.
Machar left Juba in 2016 amid clashes between his supporters and those of President Salva Kiir. The current government says it has no intention of delaying the formation of a unity government aimed at ending 6 years of conflict. It's calling on Machar to return to Juba to help set up the power-sharing agreement.
Already, his deputy is here, the deputy of the SPLM-IO chairperson. That is the deputy of Dr. Riek Machar. And Dr. Riek Machar's wife is also here. A number of other stakeholders that signed the peace agreement are here. So there's no reason why Dr. Riek should not be in Juba.
There are some opposition groups that say the current government doesn't have the resources to reform the security sector, and the more there is delay in forming the new government, the more the South Sudanese people will lose momentum and trust in the implementation of the peace deal. And some opposition groups disagree with Machar's demand for a delay.
It's important that you form a government of interested parties, and the interested parties now take the responsibility to implement the remaining activities within the pre-transition period. Extending the pre-transition activities, the pre-transition is not healthy, neither to the country, neither to the peace.
More than 2 million South Sudanese people are living as refugees in the country's neighboring states as a result of the young nation's civil war. For them, the wait to return home continues amid the ongoing struggle to find a durable peace. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
More than 61 million Egyptians have started voting in a constitutional referendum that will continue till Monday. The proposed amendments will restructure the country's political system, giving more authority to the president and longer terms in office. Adel Mahroui has more.
Parliament has only approved the constitutional amendments last Tuesday. The next day, the Elections Committee announced the vote to begin just 2 days later. With 61 million Egyptians voting in almost 14,000 ballot stations, the organization for the vote has been extremely pressured.
Our biggest challenge has been time. Usually we would need 30 days, but that would have brought us to the middle of the holy month of Ramadan. The end of April and early May, we have many religious and national holidays. It was a must to rush with the timeline. The Elections Authority is a permanent body now, and it works all year long. So we have a routine update of votes lists and judges lists too.
The vote began in Egyptian embassies all over the world on Friday, except in Syria, Yemen, Libya and Somalia. Nationally, the ballots opened their doors on Saturday. More than 19,000 judges and 120,000 government employees are monitoring the vote.
The authority were very keen to provide the utmost facilitation for people with disabilities. Ballots have been located on the ground floors of buildings. Most buildings are easily accessible, and for the first time, we've printed voting cards in Braille so all visually impaired can independently vote.
70 NGOs have been permitted to monitor the referendum, among them 5 international organizations.
More than 180,000 security personnel are protecting the vote. They've created buffer zones around each ballot station as an additional security measure, and all security apparatuses are on their highest alert. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Let's now turn to South Africa, where the Easter weekend began on a tragic note for a church community in the KwaZulu-Natal coastal province. This is after the roof at a Pentecostal church collapsed, leaving 13 congregants dead. CGTN's Yulisan Jamela has more.
At this time of the year, thousands of people visit their places of worship. Churches all around pack up. So it is quite tragic that this incident occurred at this time. The Pentecostal church building collapsed in Dlangubo in KwaZulu-Natal, killing 13 congregants. It's believed that at least 16 people were injured in the collapse. The churchgoers had gathered for a weekend-long service to commemorate the Christian festival of Easter. Police say the majority of congregants killed were women, and with the youngest person being a 13-year-old child. Preliminary reports tentatively point to heavy rainfall in the region, degrading the infrastructure of the church.
We are at least relieved that my mother passed away at church. She truly loved church.
You know, I think I actually survived because many people at the church fell on top of me. That's really how I survived.
Government says this is a devastating tragedy.
We believe that it's a very sad and tragic accident, and we would really like to convey our condolences. We have also come to see some of those who have survived, and they've got very serious injuries, what we would call crash injuries, where heavy objects fell on their body, and so they've got a number of fractures, fractured ribs, fractured limbs, and fractured pelvis, and so on.
A high-powered delegation from national and provincial government has been dispatched to the area to assist the victims and survivors. The governing African National Congress has called on all South Africans to pray for the families to have strength during this difficult time. Yulisan Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
You're watching Africa Live. Time for us to take a quick break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. How China's Navy is speeding up modernization. We have exclusive access to one of the country's conventional submarines.
digged out of the country is a foreign currency reserve.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Peninah Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
I'm reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
The Chinese PLA Navy has released details for the maritime ceremony set to take place on Tuesday. The event has been organized to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Navy. The PLA is sending 32 warships and 39 Navy aircrafts. A spokesperson says some of the Navy's latest weaponry will be on display for the very first time. Delegations from over 60 countries will be attending, and over 10 of them are expected to send warships to the ceremony. China hopes the multinational naval activities will provide a platform to discuss maritime security cooperation. Coming up next, we take you inside a Chinese submarine to see how the underwater forces are boosting the country's naval strength.
From coastal defense to open waters, from a surface fleet to a comprehensive force, the People's Liberation Army Navy is undergoing a strategic transformation. Come on board with me, Han Bin, for an inside look as China's Navy sets sail into the future.
The submarine force of the People's Liberation Army Navy is crucial in the Navy's overall strength. With the changing naval strategy, the submarine force is on course to more distant waters. Today, in our special series Red Star Blue Water, CGTN correspondent Han Bin has exclusive access to one of China's conventional submarines and crew. He finds out how the Navy is speeding up modernization.
One of the most lethal weapons in or on the sea, usually beneath the surface and training away from prying eyes.
隐蔽性是我们潜艇的生命。潜艇兵就是这么个特点啊，在水下时间长，生活相对来说比较枯燥。
At a military port on China's east coast is a submarine unit. Its missions can take the crew anywhere and anytime. We follow them into the heart of the vessel. Captain Zhao Haijun is inside the conference room. He stresses the crew must be on alert at all times to drive the point home. The message is that training must be intensified to optimize performance.
潜艇工作是一个有风险的工作。 但是我觉得这种风险是人为能控制的，只要我们每个艇员遵章、认真执行每一个条令条例规定的动作，这个风险我觉得没什么。前面马到，我们走着瞧。
Seaman Wang Xiaolong takes me to the living area. The 26-year-old has been serving on the ship ever since it was commissioned some 6 years ago. He says the cramped quarters are not the biggest challenge, it's living underwater.
不要问我在哪里，问我也不能告诉你，是那个，就是无名英雄吧，应该。选择这一行肯定就要踏踏实实的干，看不到没有白天黑夜这个概念，主要就是有艇上有那个24小时的那个时钟，来分辨这个现在是晚上还是白天。青菜一般储存的时间比较短，然后钱一般就是那种过水的青菜， 远航的时候过水的氢弹，然后后期搭配一些罐头。
Everyone has their own role in the mission. Wang Xiaolong works from the bridge, where he has the view of the water when the submarine is on the surface. He shows me the navigation meters and their functions.
就是平常我在水上状态的时候。
This is a 039B type submarine, representative of some of the Navy's current core strength. The improved weaponry is a source of pride for Wang.
对，比较自豪吧，反正。
采用了长水滴型的艇体，这种艇型的设计有利于我们潜艇保持水下的隐蔽性、信息化、自动化程度非常的高。我们艇员经常走啊，他很熟练了，你慢一点。我们在这个艇上工作生活了很长时间，非常有感情，所以说这种情感是非常特殊的。我们跟战友是一样的。岸港练的主要内容是针对一些应急操纵的项目，当非常熟练的时候，再转移到海上。
The 039B is equipped with air-independent propulsion technology and advanced systems that help it dive deeper and move faster and more quietly.
通过各种训练，能把各种应急处置的预案非常熟练，很多都是条件反射式的，来了情况马上处置，很多动作应该都是1秒记的。手轻5度，潜到120米，岸港苦练，海上精练。只有在岸上这些项目都熟练了，在海上的训练才会确保万无一失。
After a late start in the 1960s, the country prioritized submarine development. Today it has both nuclear-powered and diesel-electric submarines. The fleet is expected to grow as the Navy focuses more on blue water missions.
我们还要立足我们现有的装备，充分发挥人的作用，争取把我们新的装备、新质的战斗力和我们人更完美的结合在一起，向世界一流海军迈进，做出我们潜艇兵应有的贡献。
It's all calm for now, but the Navy knows there's strength in silence.
多满多
Han Bin, CGTN, from a submarine port in East China.
In the next episode of our special series, Red Star Blue Water, we focus on China's escort missions off the coast of Somalia. The missions have come to symbolize its blue water status and improve its combat capabilities in open waters. Be sure to join us then.
This is Chinese naval warship 547 calling.
不惧炮火，不惧危险。
演习战斗警报。
军人受尊敬的不是这个名字，而是他肩头担负的责任。
华夏两拐洞，进山。
This international peacekeeping operation has also reinforced naval capabilities in open waters.
To South Africa now, where a Zimbabwean coffee shop owner in a small seaside town has been hailed as a local hero for his efforts in assisting the victims of Cyclone Idai. He has also been collecting donations from locals to be channeled to those affected by the recent deadly storm in Zimbabwe. CGTN's Travers Andrews reports.
It's a call that went out and got answered. Residents of Kleinmont have rallied around William Chiwara and his noble cause to urgently take aid needed back home. The coffee shop owner used his store to collect much needed donations such as blankets, clothing and food for the victims in Zimbabwe's Chimanimani province.
I decided to put the word out there and mostly to people around this place to bring whatever they feel like as a contribution or a donation to help those victims. And then I started collecting this stuff, and then after a while I noticed that I have goods that I can take to Zimbabwe.
William has just returned from his latest trip, which he did alone and traveling for almost 2 days by bus from Cape Town to Zimbabwe, with over 300 kilograms of supplies in tow. He has also used the assistance of friends to appeal to the community via social media for more aid. Seeing the condition firsthand has really struck a nerve.
It was very sad to meet people with broken heart and people who lost their relatives and people who are in pain with broken ribs. And they explained to me what happened. And I saw people, old people, digging down, looking for their grandson, grandchild, and things like that. It was so sad.
He's been so moved by events that he's even used the money he earns from his coffee shop to assist with the traveling costs. But residents and friends also playing an important part. The donations have been piling in, so much so that Willem in fact has his next mission planned for just a few weeks' time. Until then he has to manage the store, collect donations and plan the logistics of hauling all of this to Zimbabwe by road, and his unflinching determination has inspired many here.
Since this disaster in Zimbabwe, William being a character that is noble and honest, we realized that even through the biggest smile that he greets you every morning, there was a sadness, and his heart was really aching for his people in Zimbabwe.
He is really a light in this community. Everyone's coming to donate, everyone's coming to put money for the traveling costs and to get all the parcels over there. So yeah, he's really bringing everybody together by his heart.
And it's a gesture of thanks for all the donations bound for Cyclone Idai's victims. Everyone receives a special coffee with a heart made by the man many years say has an even greater heart. Ravis Andrews, CGTN, Claremont, South Africa.
Meanwhile, traffic authorities in South Africa say they're now introducing stringent laws to deal with the high road accidents death toll. CGTN's Zulisa Njamela has more on this.
Senior traffic authorities and traffic officials are out in full force this weekend. They have their hands full as motorists and their passengers make their way to different destinations. The volume of traffic going out of the economic hub, Gauteng province, has been steadily increasing, and the number of fatalities are also on the increase.
At this time of the year, thousands of people travel to their holiday destinations, their homes and places of worship. A number of others travel to neighboring countries such as Zimbabwe, Namibia and Zambia.
The Easter weekend actually is worse than the festive season because the festive season is 4 or 5 weeks. Here it's concentration. It's today, you know, thousands and thousands of vehicles are moving, and on Monday. But also this Easter, much as we are doing enforcement all around, we've particularly prioritized drunken driving because that still remains one of the most serious causes of road crashes, injuries and fatalities on our road. There are still too many South African drivers who just think it's fine to get drunk and get onto the road as a driver, and we are clamping down on that now very seriously.
Nzimande says his ministry will now introduce strict laws to deal with the problem of drunken driving.
We are tightening the laws. It's very clear to me now, you know, a year after this portfolio, that actually, unless we tighten the laws, we are not going to fight successfully this scale. Going to be making drunken driving a much more serious offense than it is now. Because if you get into your car drunk, we are as good as a murderer potentially, actually.
Motorists agree that they should be more responsible on the roads.
Don't drink and drive, and I've got a second driver. When I'm tired, she's going to drive.
Most of the time, most of the people, they just drive and while they are on the cell phone, so that they must stop such things, so that they will be safe.
No, it's just to comply to the rules of the road, and then just to stick to the rules of the road. And when I feel like I'm tired, I just have to have a rest. So that will be the best way for me to reach my destination.
Authorities will continue to be on high alert with several roadblocks in place to ensure that motorists obey the rules of the roads and arrive safely at their destinations. Yudisa Njamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
In northern Uganda, where the rebels of the Lord's Resistance Army waged a 2-decade-long insurgency against the government, women with disabilities continue to experience severe discrimination, sexual and gender-based violence. Our reporter Daniel Arap Moy brings us this story from Gulu.
After 20 years of displacement and war, the people of northern Uganda are building new lives, but the challenges are daunting for people with disability. Frequently abandoned, women with disabilities face isolation and abuse as the country moves forward without them.
Most of our women with disability who went under landmine are left out. Most of them are staying alone without a man.
The war in northern Uganda took a particularly devastating toll on persons with disabilities. Rebel attacks forced people to flee, and those who could not often faced violence. Many of the disabled here say that their existence is not even felt within their local community settings. Some say that they are abused by not only strangers, but even close relatives and friends.
Some community event, you will go there and they neglect you. He said they will not show you respect. That is my challenge.
Women with disabilities, in most cases, people take them as if they are of no value. That is, if a man wants to fulfill his own sexual desire, can easily go to a lady or to a woman. After completing his desire, automatically will leave. Sometimes might have left her pregnant. And at the end of the day, we never accept that he is the one who impregnated the lady.
Despite the fact that the government of Uganda has worked tirelessly to address the needs of many vulnerable groups, serious challenges remain. Here in Gulu, many still hold on to hope that maybe someday efforts by the government in protecting their rights will yield some positive results. Jacqueline Accord is a 32-year-old tailor and a mother of one who was dumped by her husband because of her disability. She tells CGTN that she not only bears the burden of looking after herself and child, but her sister too.
I'm the one caretaking the kid, doing all the necessary things for him, as well as renting. And I have my sister, my follower, who is with me. I'm taking care of her, plus the children. She has 4 kids.
Despite their current predicament, disabled women and men in Gulu have found their self-confidence through sports.
When I came here and I met so many people with this different disability, I started feeling like I'm not alone. And besides, mine is at least.
For many of the disabled here, disability is simply not inability to fight back and defend their rights to live a dignified life.
As peace returns to the north and humanitarian organizations scale back their involvement here, local district authorities are finding it difficult to provide services, especially to vulnerable groups such as the disabled.
Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Northern Uganda.
Coming up in business news, Egypt's private sector delegation concludes door-knock mission in Washington.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
An Egyptian delegation of private sector representatives have wrapped up their door-knock mission in Washington and New York in the United States. Over the course of 5 days, the delegates met with American administration officials to attract more investments into Egypt. Here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with the details.
The main aim of the trip is to attract more investments from the United States. Egypt is the highest recipient of U.S. investments in Africa. However, most of it is in the arms, oil and petroleum sectors.
Egypt might have an edge when it comes to products that does not like organic product. The investors are looking for a lot more than just an environment. They want to make sure the tax laws are followed. They want to make sure if they go for bankruptcy, that the bankruptcy laws are suitable for this investment.
Mehdi Al-Afifi has just returned from New York and Washington's door-knock trip. The Egyptian business delegation was highlighting to their American counterparts the new investment law and incentives for foreign businesses.
The mission right now is focusing on the large companies. I think Egypt could be a very good producer and exporter of technology, applications and things like that. A model to follow is India.
Mahdi Afifi says that the feedback for the meetings were positive and that there will be a follow-up meeting between the Egyptian and business delegations of the United States here in Cairo very soon. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
To Senegal now, where the Huawei ICT Awards ceremony has taken place in the capital, Dakar. The event follows completion of a 3-month competition organized by the Chinese technology firm in partnership with Senegal's Ministry of Higher Education. The top 5 students were each awarded full scholarships in high-ranking Chinese universities, sponsored by the Chinese Embassy of Senegal. The competition seeks to boost the emergence of talents in the ICT fields and promote development platforms for higher education institutions.
C'est une compétition de très haut niveau.
It is a very high-level competition featuring more than 800 candidates. 10 students got more than 800 points out of 1,000. 3 of them got more than 900 points, and the best got 985 points. This brilliant result fully illustrates Senegal's quality of higher education. It's really great.
We are very proud to represent Senegal in China. We have been able to show what we can do, and we have discovered what other countries have that we do not have.
Last week, Jumia, the Africa-focused German-incorporated e-commerce platform, floated depository notes on the bourse in New York. This was the explanation from the company's co-CEO, Jeremy Hodara, on why the firm chose to raise capital in New York as opposed to any of the capital markets here in Africa.
We chose New York because we felt this was a place where the investor had, the most experience and the best understanding of both building marketplaces and also operating in emerging markets. And since we are building e-commerce in Africa, we felt this was the natural place to list.
Investors seem to love the company. If the first week of trading is anything to go by, Jumia's shares peaked at just over $43 on the 16th of April. 2 days later, they closed 12.3% lower at just over $35. Upon its listing, this company triggered a fierce debate on what constitutes an African company. Just look up the hashtag Jumia's Not African for the details on that debate. All right, so let's lay out the key numbers for this firm. It operates in 14 countries here in Africa. By end 2018, it had just over 4 million clients and close to 30 million product listings across its platforms. Goods and services worth nearly $950 million were sold across its platforms last year, over 60% more compared to 2017. But remember, this is also a company that's never posted net earnings, much less an operating profit. Its consolidated loss in 2018 was nearly $200 million, and that was 3% higher compared to the year before. Revenues by end 2018 were just under $150 million, and that was 28% higher compared to the year before. Cracking it in the film and music billion-dollar market in Africa is extremely difficult. Most young and talented prodigies never make it because they simply don't know how to take their craft forward and make a name for themselves. Others may get the fame, but the money doesn't follow. One Kenyan artist has rounded up a group of renowned film directors, actors and musicians to teach upcoming artists how to polish their brand and secure long-term financial gain. Nella Lupuwana reports.
Yeah. So that was my first.
It's the most ideal passport experience to empower a new generation of young, skilled and upcoming artists and film directors in Africa. Michael Ndungu, popularly known as DJ Fully Focus, has brought to Nairobi well-established international talent. They've been grooming local acts and aspiring directors on how to take advantage of the multiple billion-dollar music, film and tech industries around the world.
I just think we have so much talent and so much potential here in Kenya, and I feel that we've not had the right education, tools or information to help us understand the business side of those 3 sectors, music, film and tech.
These upcoming artists, producers and film directors struggle to secure funding for their projects in order to stay relevant.
Almost 90% to 99% of artists in Kenya fund themselves. So you're funded by your own pocket and your own staff. But there's some others who are funded by their record label. But as for me as an artist, I have to remove the money straight from my pocket.
For artists to really break through in 2019, they need representation. They need paperwork, basically IP, copyright, trademarking, all of that kind of stuff. It's so necessary to be able to have a successful career.
Another voice came from Rock Nation, an American entertainment company founded by US rapper Jay-Z in 2008.
Your relationships are everything because you don't have the machine of a label and everything and all the people and all the money that comes with that machine. Because you don't have that, your relationships are what you're going to need to take you to the next level.
Streaming giant Netflix has been expanding its African footprint, starting in Nigeria and South Africa. Award-winning Nigerian filmmaker Niyi Akinmolayan features several productions on Netflix. He says even though Nollywood is the world's second largest movie industry by volume, African filmmakers should work together to promote the continent's industry as a whole.
How do we make a great Nigerian-Kenyan movie? Okay, you should collaborate. If you collaborate, Kenyans who love Nigerian stars want to watch the film, then the film sells in Kenya. Nigerians who love Kenyan stars want to see the film, then it sells in Kenya. But it is one big film. So we need to encourage lots of collaboration. And we need to think of ourselves as African filmmakers.
The Passport Experience founder, DJ Fully Focus, hopes this event will indeed groom the next African generation of international competitors in the music, film and tech industries. Shanela Lupuana, CGTN, Nairobi.
Still ahead on Africa Live. We tell you what South Africa is doing to increase access to high-quality education in rural areas.
The Mahale Mountains National Park in Tanzania is home to the eastern subspecies of chimpanzee. Mwiga Mambo and his family came from this area before the national park existed. Following in the footsteps of his father and uncle, Mwiga introduces humans to chimpanzees that are thriving in his ancestral home.
That is the apple now. Don't worry, stay where you are. All in all, that is a raining dance also. Because they've been cold. I was so sympathized with how they're shivering.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has committed to accelerating the installation of modern infrastructure in the country's schools. Ramaphosa presided over the opening of 3 high-tech schools in the rural KwaZulu-Natal province. The areas previously only had mud structures built by local communities. CGTN's Ulisan Jamela has more.
From mud huts to smart boards, the mud huts have now been replaced with modern brick and mortar structures with additional design elements. The new schools have multi-purpose classrooms and science labs. They're also equipped with a multimedia center with a fully fitted library and computer center. Touchscreen laptops have been donated to the learners and to teachers at the schools. Ramaphosa says he's confident that the government is on the right path.
Education, as Nelson Mandela said, is the most important weapon that you can use against poverty. And we have seen how it can be utilized. By doing this, we are spreading the seed of real effective education. We are ensuring that the children who come from this area are going to be well educated. Our government is investing a lot of money.
The president says this drive is to ensure that the country produces learned future leaders.
Already here, we are looking at the future scientists that our country is going to have. We are looking at the future lawyers that our country is going to produce. We are looking at the future pilots that our country is going to have. They already show that they are capable, they are articulate, they are clever,
The president says the new model used to build better schools in the country will help in eradicating schools without water, sanitation and electricity. The designs also comply with current and future school requirements and complement the rural environment in which they are situated. The building of schools forms part of the president's call for collaboration between civil society and government to realize the children's rights to safety and dignity in educational facilities. Yodisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The United Nations observes Chinese Language Day annually on April 20th. The event was established by UNESCO in 2010. It seeks to celebrate multilingualism and cultural diversity. The day was celebrated this morning at the headquarters of the UN Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa. It was attended by Ambassador Liu Yuxi, head of the Chinese mission to the African Union, and UN officials, among other invited guests.
Chinese Language Day is celebrated on the 20th April to pay tribute to Tan Che. According to the Chinese tradition, Tan Che was a minister at the Yellow Emperor who lived around 2750 BC. He invented Chinese calligraphy and is described by the celebrated Confucianist Wang Chong as a great thinker of the Han Dynasty, and as somebody who had 4 eyes, which enabled him to see and understand the secrets of the heavens and the earth. Chinese Language Day is not only celebrating a culture, but also the contribution of a great country to the world's civilization.
Chinese language has increasingly become a bridge to connect the Chinese and African peoples in friendship, affinity and mutual understanding. Exchanges between Chinese and Africans from the circles of culture, arts, education, sports, think tanks, media, women and youth are on the rise. Confucius institutes and Chinese cultural centers are blooming and are bearing fruit in Africa.
On to Senegal, where graffiti artists from different nations have gathered in the capital Dakar to participate in this year's Festigraph Festival. It was also a moment to honor heroines of freedom in Africa. Here's Beryl Oro with more on that.
A shake and a spray. Dakar is the artistic place to be on the continent now, and the graffiti bonanza is on. As the image of Senegalese freedom idol Alain Sitoé Diatta slowly comes to life on one of the walls, the milestones of heroines of the fight of freedom in Africa are evident. Alain emerged after the Second World War to lead resistance against the French tax laws. This placed her on the list of respected fighters of self-rule, not just in Senegal, but in the entire African continent. She was chosen as the Festigraph patron. However, other African heroes were also celebrated.
It was a way for us to communicate her message, because her message doesn't really circulate like it should. For example, in school we speak of Sitoé Diatta, but in 2 or 3 paragraphs and then it's over. Given the fight she led all her life, she deserves to be spoken about. Graffiti allows us to do this because the mural can stay here for years. You can come back in 10 years and you'll see Sitoé Diatta and you will remember her message.
I have preferences. As I said last year, they created lovely murals. For example, I like this one, which represents Alain Sitoé. In general, I prefer drawings which represent something. I don't like written stuff too much, nor colors that are too flashy. I prefer when it is a lot more classic.
Previous Festigraph icons include Amilcar Cabral of Guinea-Bissau and Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah. 17 artists from France, England, Senegal, Gambia and Kenya are participating in the event. The festival is organized by a group of local graffiti artists known as Doxadem Squad.
It's rewarding and motivating. It allows us to create something together. to bring something even in areas that not everyone has mastered. So we have a mural that is very complete. For example, I made the portrait. We also have letters, decor, abstract elements and animals. We really create something together by complementing each other.
Animaux, on est tous complémentaires, quoi.
Yes, it's great. I mean, the paint dry is really quick because of the sun, which is good, and the energy from just the environment is enough to inspire you to just want to do good. You know, you feel good in this country. You want to project that from the depths within into what you're painting.
Apart from spray painting, the 10-day festival will feature hip-hop music, dance and graffiti battles. Dakar is expected to be transformed into a canvas of creativity as participants spread their art from one part of the city to another. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
And ahead in sports. Former world and Olympic champion handed a 4-year ban by the Athletics Integrity Unit.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We begin with athletics news, where former